Suncha Warhola. Suncha Warhola, 44 years old, was a Korean-born woman living at 2184 North Snoqualmie Circle in Layton Davis County, Utah. She had been married to Kenneth Warhola, 46 years old, for approximately 13 years. The couple had 2 children together. Suncha suffered from schizophrenia, a condition that would dominate the legal proceedings for the next 15 years. Both she and Kenneth had prior incidents stemming from a January 2010 situation, though those were reduced to infractions. In the weeks before the tragic events, Suncha had been making allegations against Kenneth. She called the Korean Times of Utah, asking for help finding a lawyer. She told a staffer she was insecure, scared to death, and wanted to divorce her husband, but didn't want to give her children to him. On September 8, 2010, Suncha ended the lives of both her children in their Layton home while Kenneth was at work. Both passed away from strangulation. Distinct ligature marks were found on their necks. Both children and their mother had multiple defensive wounds on their arms and legs, indicating the children fought back. Kenneth received a hang-up call from the home phone at approximately 9 a.m. When he arrived home at 5:45 p.m., he found the bedroom doors closed and barricaded from inside. Suncha told him to give her 10 minutes. When he forced the door, she asked him not to look. He touched his son's face. It was cold. He ran to a neighbor's house and called 911 at 6:45 p.m. Charges of 2 counts of aggravated ending were filed on September 9, 2010. Attorney Edward Brass was appointed, qualified for cases involving potential capital punishment. The case then entered an extraordinarily protracted legal process driven by competency issues. In 2011, Warhola was found not competent and admitted to the Utah State Hospital, where she remained for approximately 8 years. In May 2019, she was deemed competent. The case moved forward but stalled again by late 2021. Her condition deteriorated, and she was found not competent a second time in March 2022. The global health situation caused additional delays. On June 3, 2024, Warhola finally pleaded guilty with a mental condition to 2 counts of first-degree felony ending, with prosecutors agreeing not to seek capital punishment. On June 30, 2025, Judge Michael Edwards of 2nd District Court in Farmington sentenced Warhola to 15 years to life on each count, to run concurrently. She received credit for 5,409 days already served. Kenneth Warhola had requested consecutive sentences, but was denied. At sentencing, Warhola said through a Korean translator, "At that time, for me, I did not have any choice. I would like to go back to Korea. My sister is waiting for me." Her psychiatrist expressed concern about how she would handle prison versus the state hospital. She is currently in the Utah State prison system and may move between hospitals and prisons for the remainder of her life. What makes Suncha's case so complex is the intersection of severe mental illness with the criminal justice system. She suffered from schizophrenia, a documented diagnosed condition. In the weeks before the events, she was actively seeking help, calling a Korean newspaper asking for legal assistance, telling a staffer she was insecure, scared to death. The legal proceedings stretched 15 years. She was found not competent in 2011 and spent 8 years at Utah State Hospital. When finally deemed competent in 2019, the case moved forward, only to stall when her condition deteriorated. She was found not competent a second time in March 2022. Kenneth's request for consecutive sentences was denied. The judge imposed 15 years to life on each count, but allowed them to run concurrently at the same time rather than back-to-back. With credit for the 5,409 days already served, approximately 14 years and 9 months, she became eligible for parole consideration relatively soon after sentencing. While Suncha's schizophrenia drove a 15-year legal process, the next case would involve someone who made a calculated decision the night before. Brandy Worley. Brandy Worley, born approximately November 10, 1986, was 30 years old and living in Darlington, Montgomery County, Indiana, a small town about 40 miles northwest of Indianapolis. She had attended Indiana State University and studied elementary education, working as a preschool teacher before becoming a stay-at-home mother. She married Jason Worley, a software engineer, in August 2009 after dating since high school. Jason discovered Brandy was having an affair with their neighbor. He installed tracking software on her phone and found romantic texts. He posted about the situation on Reddit, seeking advice. On November 15, 2016, 2 days before the tragic events, Jason told Brandy he wanted a divorce. No prior criminal history existed, and her defense attorney stated no prior harm to the children had occurred. In the early morning hours of November 17, 2016, Brandy ended both her children using a K-bar combat knife she had purchased at Walmart the previous evening, while telling Jason she needed pipe cleaners for a school project. Brandy woke her son and told him they were having a sleepover in her daughter's room. Her daughter awoke and asked what her mother was doing. Brandy said nothing, and the girl went back to sleep. She then stabbed herself in the neck and took a large quantity of Benadryl in an attempt to end her own life. At 4:35 a.m., Brandy called 911 in a calm, slurred monotone. "I just stabbed myself and I ended my 2 children. When asked why, my husband wanted a divorce and wanted to take my kids. I don't want him to have my kids." Her mother arrived, and her screams woke Jason in the basement. Brandy told him, "Now you can't take my children from me." The case was self-reported via the 911 call, constituting a full confession. Evidence included the confession recording, the K-bar knife, Walmart purchase records, and autopsy results. Brandy was hospitalized at IU Health Methodist Hospital for over a week before booking into Montgomery County Jail. She initially pleaded not guilty, planning an insanity defense, but in January 2018 pleaded guilty to 2 counts of ending lives. On March 19, 2018, Judge Harry Siamis sentenced Worley to 120 years in prison, 65 years for one child and 55 for the other, served consecutively. She gave no statement at sentencing and showed no emotion. Prosecutors noted she never expressed remorse, only regret at failing to pass away with her children. She is currently incarcerated at the Indiana Women's Prison in Indianapolis. The case was featured on Investigation Discovery's Evil Lives Here in March 2024. Jason Worley reportedly remarried and stays out of media. What makes Brandy's case so chilling is the premeditation combined with calculated deception. The 120-year sentence, 65 years for one child, 55 for the other, consecutively means Brandy will never be released. Prosecutors noted she never expressed remorse, only regret at failing to pass away with them. Jason discovered the affair through tracking software. His Reddit post seeking advice, the divorce request on November 15th, the 2-day gap before Brandy acted, the Walmart trip for pipe cleaners, the sleepover lie. Every detail reveals calculation. While Brandy's case involved calculated premeditation over custody concerns, the next case would involve someone whose children had already been removed and returned. Brittany Pilkington. Brittany Cummins Pilkington was just 23 when arrested in August 2015 in Bellefontaine, Logan County, Ohio. Her background is one of the most disturbing in this series. Her mother, Lori Cummins, began a relationship with Joseph Pilkington, a man 20 years Brittany's senior when Brittany was about 7. Joseph began grooming her at approximately 9 years old, initially showing her inappropriate material while babysitting. The harm escalated to the most serious level by 7th grade, and Brittany later told investigators he harmed her way over 100 times. She became pregnant at 17 in 2009 and married Joseph at 18. Brittany also suffered brain damage from lead poisoning as an infant, with scans showing damage to the right frontal lobe. Her IQ was tested at various points between 71 and 94, and Children's Services noted she functioned on the level of an 11 or 12-year-old at 18. Joseph Pilkington was later charged following Brittany's arrest, but pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor, receiving only a $250 fine and Tier 1 registration. Brittany ended 3 sons over a span of 13 months, all by suffocation with blankets. The first, 3 months old, passed away in July 2014. Initially attributed to SIDS, Brittany later said she rolled over on him in bed. The second, 4 years old, passed away on April 6, 2015. Brittany put a blanket over his head and applied pressure to his nose. Joseph found him unresponsive after returning from work. The third, 3 months old, passed away on August 18, 2015, less than 1 week after being returned from protective custody. Logan County Children's Services had taken temporary custody of the surviving children after the second passing, but a judge ordered them returned, ruling there wasn't concrete evidence the boys had been harmed. Brittany's stated motive was that Joseph paid more attention to the boys than to her and their surviving daughter. She also expressed worry her sons would eventually become harmful toward women. After the third passing, the pattern of 3 losses in 13 months prompted investigators to press Brittany, who confessed in a recorded interrogation on the same day, describing each event in detail. 4 years of pre-trial litigation followed, including motions to suppress her confession and remove potential capital punishment. On November 19, 2019, she accepted a plea deal, guilty to 1 count of involuntary manslaughter for the first son and 2 counts of ending for the second and third sons. She received 37 years to life, 7 years for manslaughter, plus 15 to life for each ending, all consecutive. Daughter Haley is being raised by family members Dave and Judy Grimes. Defense attorney Court Gatterdam stated, "It doesn't excuse her conduct, but by God, it does explain it. Brittany's brain is broken." What makes Brittany's case so tragic is the complete failure of every protective system. Joseph began grooming her at 9. The harm escalated by 7th grade over 100 times according to her statement to investigators. She became pregnant at 17 and married him at 18. Joseph faced only a $250 fine and Tier 1 registration after pleading to a reduced misdemeanor. The brain damage from lead poisoning as an infant. IQ scores between 71 and 94. Children's Services documented she functioned on the level of an 11 or 12-year-old at 18. She described each event in detail in a recorded interrogation the same day the third son passed. Her stated motive that Joseph paid more attention to the boys than to her reveals psychological damage from years of grooming. She viewed the boys as competition for Joseph's attention. The man who'd groomed her from 9, harmed her over 100 times, impregnated her at 17. She was competing with her own sons for his attention. Defense attorney Gatterdam's statement captures the complexity. It doesn't excuse her conduct, but by God, it does explain it. Brittany's brain is broken. The brain damage, the intellectual functioning of an 11-year-old. The over 100 incidents of harm, the pregnancy at 17, the complete failure from Children's Services to the court that returned children 6 days before the final passing. While Brittany's case involved system failures that returned children to danger, the next case would involve someone turned away from help the night before. Margaret Dale Hawke. Margaret Dale Hawke, 36 years old, was an Aboriginal Australian single mother living on Anderson Street in Port Hedland, Western Australia, approximately 1,500 kilometers north of Perth. Her life was defined by generational trauma, connections to the stolen generations, abandonment by her parents until 18 months, harm starting at 7 years old, and ejection from the family home at 16 when she started receiving welfare payments. She was a victim at the hands of 3 separate partners, One beat her with a metal pole and a golf club. She used methamphetamine as a coping mechanism from a young age. On the night before the tragic events, she presented at a women's refuge seeking help for herself and her 3 children, but was turned away because the refuge was full. On July 19th, 2022, Hawk ended the lives of all 3 of her children. She told them, "Babies, I don't want this to hurt anymore." After ending all 3 children, Hawk walked to a nearby beach and disposed of evidence. She returned to the house and deliberately lit 2 fires in the bedrooms, then walked out as the home was engulfed by flames. Witnesses heard her say, "I love my babies. I did it to my babies. Why? Why?" Neighbors rushed to the home, smashing windows and using garden hoses, but could not enter. Autopsies confirmed the children were already deceased before the fire. No soot was found in their airways. Hawk was at the scene making incriminating statements when police arrived. She was hospitalized and later flown to Perth for treatment. Detective Cameron Blaine, known from the Cleo Smith kidnapping case, was involved in the investigation. She admitted to the acts in police interviews. On December 21st, 2022, she pleaded guilty to 3 counts of ending lives and 1 count of criminal damage by fire at the Supreme Court in Perth. On May 5th, 2023, Justice Michael Lundberg, himself born and raised in Port Hedland, sentenced Hawk to 3 life sentences with a minimum non-parole period of 25 years. He acknowledged mitigating factors including her Aboriginal heritage, intergenerational disadvantage, and the harm she endured, but stated she had failed her fundamental duty as a parent. Family members expressed dissatisfaction, saying she should have received life without parole. The Anderson Street home has been torn down, with a community garden planned for the site. What makes Margaret's case so devastating is the refuge being full the night before. She presented seeking help for herself and her 3 children. Family members expressed dissatisfaction with the 25-year minimum, saying she should have received life without parole. That single detail haunts this case. If there had been 1 more bed, if there had been 1 more space, if someone had found a way to accommodate a mother and 3 children seeking help the night before. While Margaret was turned away from a refuge the night before, the next case would involve someone who hid what happened for over 4 years. Hak Young Lee. Hak Young Lee, born Ji Yoon Lee in South Korea, migrated to New Zealand in 1993 at 13 years old. She married Ian Jo in 2006 after meeting at a church where she served as a Sunday school teacher. They had 2 children. Ian Jo, who worked as a supervisor at Auckland Airport, passed away from esophageal cancer in November 2017, triggering a severe mental health crisis. Lee had a documented history of fragility. She made 3 previous attempts to end her own life, including one after her father's passing at 18. She told her mother she wanted herself and her children to pass away with her late husband. She was prescribed 60 nortriptyline tablets, an antidepressant, in August 2017. After Ian's passing, Lee took the children on an extravagant spending spree, a 2-month luxury holiday in South Korea, costing 32,000 New Zealand dollars, stays at Hilton hotels across New Zealand and Australia. The children's last digital activity was June 27, 2018, when they logged into Minecraft and earned trophies. Around that date, Lee ended both children by serving them juice mixed with nortriptyline. The children did not wake from their sleep. Lee wrapped the bodies in plastic and placed them in peach-colored suitcases, which she stored in a rented unit at Safe Store Papatoeto. She attempted to end her own life, but survived, then changed her name from Ji-eun Lee to Hak Young Lee, bought a business class ticket to South Korea, and spent money on beauty treatments to start a new life. Lee stopped paying storage rental fees. The contents were auctioned online. On August 11th, 2022, over 4 years after the events, a family from Clendon Park purchased the suitcases, noticed a strange smell, opened one, and discovered the remains. Lee was arrested in Ulsan, South Korea on September 15, 2022, and extradited to New Zealand in November 2022. The trial began September 8, 2025, at Auckland High Court before Justice Jeffrey Venning. Lee represented herself with standby counsel. The central question was not whether she ended the children's lives she confessed, but whether she was legally insane. The prosecution argued her post-event behavior, hiding bodies, changing her name, fleeing the country, spending on beauty treatments proved she knew her actions were wrong. On September 23, 2025, the jury convicted her of both endings after just 3.5 hours of deliberation. On November 26, 2025, Lee was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Justice Venning ordered her to begin her sentence in a locked psychiatric facility, with the condition she must transfer to prison when deemed mentally fit. Lee's mother testified, "It felt like a pain that cut through my bones." What makes Hak Young's case so disturbing is the 4-year gap. June 27, 2018, the children's last Minecraft activity. The trial's question was, Lee insane? Came down to post-event behavior. Hiding bodies, changing names, fleeing countries, beauty treatments proved she knew her actions were wrong. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. While Hak Young Lee hid bodies for 4 years, the next case would involve a method so horrifying, it became known by the instrument used. Lamora Williams. Lamora Williams, 24 years old at the time, lived in the Oakland City West End apartments on Howell Place in southwest Atlanta, Georgia. She had 4 children with 2 different fathers. Family members described undiagnosed mental health issues since childhood. Her mother, Brenda, stated, "She was a slow learner. She would do little simple things, like cut her dolls' heads off." Williams reportedly suffered postpartum depression, and her father's passing in 2014 was described as devastating. After her partner Jamil Penn left her approximately 3 months before the tragic events, her mother warned, "I told him something tragic is going to happen." Williams quit her job a month before because she couldn't find childcare, and neighbors reported she often left her children home alone. Between midnight October 12th and 11 p.m. October 13th, 2017, Williams ended the lives of 2 of her 3 sons who were home. A 3rd son was present but unharmed. According to the arrest warrant, Williams knowingly and intentionally placed the toddlers in an oven and turned it on. Before calling 911, Williams video called Jamil Penn and showed him the deceased bodies of their children. Penn immediately called 911. Williams then called 911 herself, claiming she had come home from work and found them deceased, a story investigators did not believe. After extensive delays, including mental competency evaluations and the global health situation, a 2-week trial was held in Fulton County Superior Court in November 2024, 7 years after the incident. Williams was convicted on all 14 counts, including 2 counts of ending lives, 4 counts of felony ending, and multiple related charges. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 35 additional years. What makes Lamora's case so disturbing is the video call to Jamil Penn. She called her ex-partner and showed him what had happened via video before calling authorities. Whatever stability Lamora had maintained collapsed after Penn left. The 7-year gap between October 2017 and the November 2024 trial reflects multiple delays, but ultimately, conviction on every count. Life without parole plus 35 years. While Lamora's case involved undiagnosed mental illness and a horrifying method, the next case would involve a mother who acted just days after her husband's passing. Vanessa Collias. Vanessa Collias, 25 years old, lived in a 6th-floor apartment at 5 Glamorgan Avenue in Scarborough, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She was married to Costa Collias, a musician who was 45 years her senior, 72 years old. Their relationship was described as unconventional and codependent. Costa passed away from aggressive leukemia and sepsis on December 1st, 2023. A funeral was held on December 7th. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Sumita Chatterjee diagnosed Kalias with adjustment disorder, rooted in persistent childhood trauma, though she was not found to have a major mental disorder. Kalias had experienced prior harm and viewed her husband as her sole source of safety and stability. On the evening of December 10th, 2023, 9 days after her husband's passing, Kalias ended the lives of both her sons. Before the acts, she wrote notes, one addressed "For Police," and laid out their funeral clothing, birth certificates, a photograph of their deceased father, and a cross. She suffocated each son one after another, holding them close with her hand over their mouth and nose, while softly singing "You Are My Sunshine." She positioned the boys lying side by side in front of the television, with a children's program still playing. She then jumped from the 6th floor balcony in an attempt to end her own life. Police found her on the grass outside, attended by paramedics. On November 17, 2025, Kalias pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree ending, reduced from first-degree based on the psychiatric assessment at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice before Justice Maureen Forrestal. She appeared via video from the Southwest Detention Center in Windsor. The fall left her permanently paraplegic from the waist down. She delivered an emotional statement. "To my babies, I love you more than anything. I am so grateful I got to be your mom." She was sentenced to life in prison without parole eligibility for 18 years. What makes Vanessa's case so tragic is the preparation, the singing of "You Are My Sunshine" while suffocating each son, holding them close, her hand over their mouth and nose. One son, then the other. The reduction from first degree to second degree based on psychiatric assessment. The court recognizing that while she planned and prepared, her mental state mitigated culpability. Sentenced to life without parole eligibility for 18 years. She'll be 43 at earliest parole consideration. While Vanessa's case involved grief-driven actions after her husband's passing, the next case would involve someone who methodically ended multiple family members for financial gain. Diane Stout. Diane Stout, a trained nurse, church organist, and primary breadwinner, lived in Springfield, Missouri. She was married to Mark Stouty, the lead singer and guitarist of a local blues band called Messing with Destiny. The couple had 4 children: Sarah, Sean, Rachel, and Brianna. Diane viewed her family members as burdens. Mark was lazy. Sean was worse than a pest. Sarah had student loans and wouldn't get a job. And Brianna had learning issues. Diane ended family members with antifreeze ethylene glycol purchased online specifically to avoid the bittering agent added to commercial antifreeze. Her daughter Rachel helped plan and execute the acts. Mark Stouty passed away on April 8, 2012, Easter Sunday. Antifreeze was mixed into his Gatorade over several days. Death was ruled natural causes. His body was cremated. Diane collected his $20,000 life insurance and moved the family to a nicer house. Sean Stouty passed away on September 2, 2012. Antifreeze was mixed into his Coca-Cola. Death was attributed to prior medical issues. His body was cremated. No memorial service was held. Sarah Stouty was poisoned in June 2013 over 4 days. Hospitalized at Cox South Hospital with brain bleed, organ failure, and kidney failure. Sarah survived but suffered severe permanent neurological and organ damage and now lives in assisted living. Diane and Rachel admitted they planned to poison the youngest, Brianna, next. On June 11, 2013, police received an anonymous tip from Pastor Jeff Sippy of Redeemer Lutheran Church, who noticed Diane showed no grief and the family tragedies seemed connected. Detective Neil McCamus found Diane behaving strangely at the hospital, joking about Sarah's condition and planning a Florida vacation. Rachel's diary, discovered during a home search, contained an entry dated June 13, 2011, nearly a year before the first ending reading. It's sad when I realized how my father will pass on in the next 2 months. Sean, my brother, will move on shortly after. On June 20th, 2013, Diane confessed, saying, "I'm not a perpetual killer. I'm just stupid." Rachel pleaded guilty in May 2015 to 2 counts of second-degree ending and received 2 life sentences plus 20 years. Diane entered an Alford plea to 2 counts of first-degree ending in January 2016 and received 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. She is currently at Chillicothe Correctional Center in Missouri. Diane has since recanted her confession and claims innocence. Rachel is at the Women's Eastern Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Vandalia, Missouri. Sarah has publicly forgiven her mother, stating, "I prefer to be a survivor than a victim." What makes Diane's case so calculated is the diary entry. Rachel's parole eligibility around 42 years from conviction. Diane's 3 consecutive life terms without parole. Brianna avoided the fate her mother and sister had planned only because Pastor Sippy made the call before they could act. While Diane's case involved methodical poisoning for financial gain, the next case would involve someone who documented every moment online. Lacey Spears. Lacey Spears, born October 16, 1987, in Decatur, Alabama, was the youngest of 3 children. She had a documented pattern of pathological lying. She claimed other people's children were her own, faked illnesses, and fabricated a fictional deceased police officer, father for her son. She became pregnant in 2008 by neighbor Chris Hill, but refused him any access to their son. She invented a father figure named Blake, who she claimed passed away in a car accident. Spears moved from Alabama to Florida to the Fellowship Community in Chestnut Ridge, New York, an alternative community for elderly care. From birth, Spears made her son Garnett Paul Thompson Spears, born December 3, 2008, appear chronically ill, administering sodium salt through his gastrostomy feeding tube to cause repeated medical emergencies. Doctors suspected Munchausen by proxy as early as 5 weeks into Garnett's life. At 10 weeks old, his sodium levels reached 166 to 180 normal, is approximately 140. By 9 months, he had undergone stomach surgery and had a permanent G-tube inserted. Multiple acquaintances observed Garnett eating normally when away from his mother. She maintained an extensive social media presence, documenting his hospitalizations under Garnett's journey. On January 17, 2014, Lacey brought Garnett to Nyack Hospital with seizure-like symptoms. His sodium was normal at admission, 138. Hospital surveillance video showed Lacey taking Garnett to the bathroom with what appeared to be a cup of salt and a G-tube connector. After each bathroom visit, Garnett's condition deteriorated dramatically. His sodium spiked to a lethal 182. He was airlifted to Maria Ferrari Children's Hospital, but suffered irreversible brain swelling. On January 22nd, learning Garnett had no brain activity, Lacey called a friend and asked her to retrieve a feeding bag from her home and get rid of it and don't tell anybody. Garnett passed away January 23, 2014. Forensic analysis of the feeding bags revealed the equivalent of 69 McDonald's salt packets worth of sodium lethal levels. Investigators found she had searched dangers of high sodium online. The trial began February 3, 2015, in Westchester County. The defense called no witnesses and argued hospital negligence. On March 2, 2015, the jury found Spears guilty of second-degree ending. On April 8, 2015, Judge Robert Neary sentenced Spears to 20 years to life. Breaking from the trial's silence on the topic, the judge stated, "One does not have to be a psychologist to realize you suffer from Munchausen by proxy." Appeals were denied at every level. The conviction was upheld in 2017, and the Court of Appeals declined review. Spears is incarcerated at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Westchester County, New York, with earliest parole eligibility on June 12, 2034. She maintains her innocence. What makes Lacey's case so disturbing is the documentation. Garnett's journey on social media, extensive posts about his hospitalizations, the sympathy and attention she received, the pathological lying about his father inventing Blake when Chris Hill was alive and denied access to his son. The pattern starting at 5 weeks old. Doctors suspected Munchausen by proxy from the beginning. Judge Neary breaking the trial's silence and directly stating she suffered from Munchausen by proxy, a disorder where caregivers fabricate or induce illness to gain attention and sympathy. Lacey made Garnett sick for years, documented it all online, garnered sympathy, and ultimately ended his life. 20 years to life. Parole eligibility in 2034. Maintaining innocence despite surveillance footage, forensic evidence. The phone call to destroy evidence. While Lacey's case involved Munchausen by proxy and social media documentation, the final case would involve someone who locked her children inside a burning home. Molly Jo Delgado. Molly Jo Delgado, née McCombs, approximately 29 years old at the time, lived in a modular home on Cracked Walnut Way in Martinsburg, Berkeley County, West Virginia. She was married to Justin Delgado Sr. and described as having mild intellectual impairment. She was in a learning disabled program throughout schooling and could not complete even one semester of community college. Her mother stated, "Molly had mental problems. She's weak in the mind." While incarcerated, she reported auditory hallucinations and severe depression. A friend, Kathy Butler, testified that Delgado had told her she had dreams about hurting or ending her children before the events occurred. On the evening of January 24th, 2017, Delgado put her 2 sons to bed. She overmedicated one child with cough syrup containing dextromethorphan at a toxic or lethal dose. After both children fell asleep, she used a lighter to set fire to each child's bedding separately. 2 independent fires confirmed by arson investigation. She then left the house and locked the front door from the outside, taking the key. She walked to her mother's house across the street. Approximately 10 minutes later, her husband, Justin Sr., asleep in the master bedroom, was awakened by smoke. He found the front door locked and had to escape through a kitchen window. He raced to the boys' bedroom window and broke it, but both children were already deceased. Forensic cell phone analysis revealed Delgado had been on the phone for 54 minutes with a man with whom she was having an affair, ending approximately 10 minutes before the fires were discovered. Supervisory investigator George A. Harms of the West Virginia State Fire Marshal's Office determined the fire was incendiary arson after ruling out all accidental causes. Investigators built a near-exact replica of the boys' bedroom and consulted the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit at Quantico. On March 8, 2017, ATF Special Agent Stephen Patrick interviewed Delgado, who confessed to using a lighter to set fire to each son's bedding. Witnesses described disturbing post-event behavior. She appeared calmer than me at the hospital per her husband. And at the funeral, she worked the room, walked around, and joked and laughed and smiled, never shed a tear, and commented that it would be easy for her to get a divorce now because he would not have to pay alimony. Delgado pleaded no contest to 2 counts of first-degree ending in early 2019. A mercy trial jury recommended no mercy. On March 6, 2019, Judge Laura Faircloth sentenced her to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. She appealed to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, which affirmed the sentence on June 18, 2020, finding no substantial question of law and no prejudicial error. Delgado remains in the West Virginia correctional system. What makes Molly's case so calculated is the locked door. She overmedicated one child with cough syrup. She set 2 separate fires to each child's bedding. Then she left the house and locked the front door from the outside, taking the key with her. The West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals affirmed the sentence no substantial question of law, no prejudicial error. Molly remains imprisoned. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.